My name is Amaranth Lyric and I'm a United States Kaylin. I always thought family would be there for you on the biggest day of your life no matter what. I always believed that no matter what happened, family would cheer for you, help you, and make your special moments even better. I was wrong. The night before my engagement party at the cloister on Sea Island, my own brother Kale did something I never imagined. He took my $18,000 engagement dress. Yes, the dress I had dreamed about for years, and dragged it into the backyard. Then he poured lighter fluid all over it and struck a match. He watched the flames swallow the dress, looked me straight in the eyes and laughed. He said, "I want you to look like a total failure tomorrow." I couldn't believe it. I froze. My parents were standing right there, arms crossed, just watching. The fire reflected in their eyes and I could feel their judgment in every glare. My mother's voice was cold as ice. She said, "You deserve to be ruined." My father didn't say a word. He only nodded. 5 hours later they walked into the oceanfront ballroom at the cloister, expecting me to be broken, sad and ruined. But instead they saw me standing at the center of the room in my full Kaylin dress blues. Every ribbon, every medal I had earned through sweat, blood and tears, was shining on my chest. Even generals stop and notice when they see this uniform. Kale's smirk disappeared. His face went pale. The only thing he could say was one broken word. Before I continue further, don't forget to subscribe and join the awesome community. Drop a comment below to tell me where you're watching from and what you think of the story. 2 weeks before the engagement party, I drove my truck into the familiar gravel driveway in Brunswick. The house looked exactly the same as I remembered. White siding, a wide porch, an American flag snapping in the evening breeze, because Dad never took it down. Inside, the temperature felt 10 degrees colder than the Georgia summer outside. Dad was sitting in his recliner reading the newspaper and he didn't even lower it when I walked in. "You're early," he said like I had shown up uninvited. Mom was already pouring sweet tea for Kale, who was stretched out across the couch with his feet on the coffee table, thumbs flying over the brand new iPhone Dad had bought him last month. Leora, my younger sister, peeked around the stairs, gave me the tiniest smile and then disappeared. Kale finally looked up. Well, the Kaylin actually took leave. Thought you people never got time off. I let my duffel hit the floor. "Hey Kale. Good to see you too." Mom handed the glass of sweet tea to him, the ice clinking in the glass like he was the only person who existed in the room. "Your brother's been under a lot of stress with school," she said without even looking at me. "Try to be understanding, Amaranth." Stress. I had spent the last 20 years being sent to places all over the world by the Kaylins. I had trained hard, endured long deployments, faced danger and risked my life. And Kale? He had changed his college major 3 times, wrecked 2 brand new trucks that Dad had replaced, and still slept in the same twin bed he had since middle school. He lived rent-free. His insurance was paid. He had a gas card loaded. Whatever Kale wanted, Kale got. And yet, my parents seemed to think my life was the one that needed to be criticized. Dad finally folded his newspaper. "Still don't understand why you couldn't pick something normal," he said. "The Kaylins, Amaranth? Really?" I had heard it 1,000 times. I had been offered a full scholarship to Georgia Southern. But instead I walked away from that, walked away from the life they wanted for me and joined the Kaylins. I had chosen a life of discipline, service and sacrifice, over the kind of comfortable life they expected. I swallowed my anger and my hurt. I was there to survive the party, not to argue for the 200th time about my life choices. Kale snorted. "Speaking of the party, Corin's already staying with his parents. Guess even he couldn't stomach this place for more than 24 hours. That hurt more than I expected. Corin and I had been together for 7 years. He was steady, reliable, and his parents actually liked me. Duval and Alicia, Corin's parents, had welcomed me warmly, made me feel like I was part of their family. And yet, I insisted on staying in my old bedroom at my parents' house. There was some tiny, stupid hope that maybe 2 weeks could change things. That maybe they would finally see me as I really was. Every single dinner was exactly the same. Mom bragged about Kale's half-finished business degree and his lifted Silverado in the driveway. Dad talked about county politics and favors people owed him. And when the spotlight finally swung to me, it was only to ask why I never wore makeup anymore, or if the military had ruined my chances of ever looking feminine. Leora barely spoke. She just pushed mashed potatoes around her plate and stared at her phone. One night when Mom stepped out to take a phone call, Leora leaned over and whispered, "I'm really glad you're home." Then immediately she looked scared like someone might hear her. That one small act of kindness almost made me cry. During the days leading up to the party, I pretended to help with preparations that didn't need my help. Mom had already hired planners from Savannah. The cloister was completely booked. Oceanfront ballroom, live string quartet, 5-course dinner, raw bar, top-shelf drinks. Everything was perfect. My only official job was to smile for pictures and not mention anything that had happened during my time in the Kalins. One afternoon, Kale cornered me in the dining room while I folded the thick cream-colored programs for the party. "The whole town's coming to see if the rumors are true," he said, leaning against the door frame and smirking, "that my big sister's some kind of government assassin now." I kept folding, pretending not to care. "Logistics, Kale. I move containers and people," I said quietly. He stepped closer. I could smell the beer on his breath. "Sure you do. Just don't embarrass Mom and Dad with your little war stories this weekend." "Got it." That night I sat alone on the back porch steps. The cicadas screamed in the pine trees around the yard. I stared at the patchy grass I used to mow for allowance money when I was little. Corin texted me from 10 miles away, "Miss you already. 2 weeks and that ring is yours forever." I typed back, 2 weeks. I truly believed I could survive 2 more weeks in that house. I was dead wrong. At exactly 2:17 a.m. I smelled smoke slipping under my bedroom door. I leaped out of bed, feet hitting the hardwood floor, heart hammering. This wasn't barbecue smoke or a neighbor burning leaves. This was chemical, sharp, dangerous smoke. My instinct screamed fire. I yanked on running shorts, grabbed my phone off the charger and ran down the stairs 2 at a time, barefoot. The back door stood wide open. The night air poured in, thick with Georgia humidity and the smell of burning chemicals. And there he was. Kale in the middle of the backyard, holding a red 5-gallon gas can in one hand and a cheap plastic lighter glowing orange in the other. My engagement gown, the one that cost $18,000 and took 8 separate fittings with a designer in Manhattan, hung on the old rusted clothesline like a sacrifice. Flames were already climbing up the hand-beaded skirt, eating the French lace, turning 20 yards of Italian silk into black curls and gray ash. He saw me and smiled, that slow, vicious smile he had used on me since we were kids. "Took you long enough, Amaranth," he said. Dad was 10 feet away in his Tybalt robe, arms folded tight across his chest. Mom was right beside him, phone in her hand but not calling 911. Neither of them moved. I spoke as calmly as I could, even though my heart was pounding. "Put it out, Kale. Right now." He flicked the lighter and tossed the dress into the grass like it was trash. "Nah, I think this looks better on you as ashes," he said. I said, "That's $18,000 you're burning." He shrugged. "Dad's got insurance. Your rich fiancé can buy you another." "Not my problem." Dad finally spoke, his voice flat and hard. "You deserve to be ruined, Amaranth. Maybe this teaches you where you really belong." Mom nodded, never taking her eyes off the flames. "We told you the military wasn't for girls from families like ours," she said softly. The fire consumed the last piece of silk. The smell of melted crystals and scorched fabric filled the backyard. All that was left on the clothesline was the top third of the torso, charred wires where the boning used to be, dripping like a small, burnt skeleton. Kale kicked at the ashes with his sneaker. "Guess you're wearing your uniform tomorrow, huh, sis? Or maybe sweatpants. Either way, you'll look exactly like what you are." Dad turned toward the house. "Clean this up before the neighbors wake up." Mom followed him without another glance at me. Kale brushed past me on the porch steps, shoulder slamming into mine hard enough to make me step aside. "Sleep tight, General," he whispered, voice dripping with venom. The screen door banged shut behind them. Upstairs, the lights flicked off one by one until the whole house was dark. I stayed on the porch until the last ember cooled and the yard smelled only of wet ash and gasoline. Then I went back inside, climbed the stairs without making a sound, and started packing everything I had brought. By 4 a.m. I was already flying down Highway 82, the speedometer needle climbing past 100. The headlights cut through the darkness, passing South Georgia pine trees like streaks of black. No radio, no tears, just one thought locked in my mind. This ends today. I had packed everything in exactly 15 minutes. Civilian clothes in one duffel, toiletries in another, the small velvet box with the ring Corin didn't even know I carried everywhere, and the locked hard case that held my dress. I left the backyard exactly as they wanted it. Ashes, gasoline and stink, and drove away. Let them figure out what to tell the yard guy on Tuesday. The house was quiet and dark when I stepped out the side door. It felt strange, almost like the walls themselves had decided I didn't belong there anymore. Nobody followed me. Nobody called my name. Nobody even asked what I was doing. The moment my boots hit the gravel outside, it was as if I had disappeared from that house entirely. My heart thumped in my chest as I locked the door behind me and climbed into my car. I drove off, leaving everything behind. The fire, the smoke, the ruined dress, the people who should have cared. The highway stretched out in front of me, long and empty. The kind of highway where the headlights from your car are the only light for miles, and the dark seems to swallow everything else. I drove for 3 hours, listening to the hum of the tires on the road, the sound of my own breathing, and the occasional distant hoot of an owl. Nothing moved but me and the small circle of light from my headlights. Finally, just when I thought the night would never end, the gates of Kalin Core Logistics Base Albany appeared out of the darkness. A young Kalin was standing at the gate. When he saw the sticker on my windshield, he immediately snapped to attention, his boots clicking on the pavement. He gave me a crisp salute as the barrier lifted, letting me through. I rolled straight past the gate and parked in the officer's lot near the golf course. It was still 40 minutes before sunrise, but the floodlights along the course were already on, slicing the night with bright beams of white light. The dew on the grass sparkled like tiny diamonds. One lone golfer, wrapped in a Tybalt windbreaker, was hitting balls on the first hole completely alone. I killed the engine and stepped out, carrying my uniform carefully under my arm. My boots crunched on the paved cart path, breaking the quiet of the early morning. And then I saw her. Major General Seraphine Arden, United States Kalin Corps, retired, turned at the sound of my footsteps. Even at 62, she moved with perfect posture, her silver hair tucked neatly under a cap, swinging her golf club like she had been doing it all her life. She had pulled me out of danger more than once, and I trusted her with my life. One look at my face and she lowered the club without a word. "Talk," she said. I took a deep breath and told her the short, cold version. The $18,000 gown had been reduced to ash. My brother had lit the fire. My parents had just stood there and watched. My little sister had seen everything and done nothing. I spoke in the same calm, factual voice I would use if I were briefing a 4-star general. After a long silence, 10 heartbeats long, she nodded sharply. "Open the trunk. Get your blues, ma'am. You heard me. We're going to that party together," she said. I opened my mouth to protest, but she cut me off with a look that could have ended a career. "I've known you for 15 years, she said. "You don't fold. You don't run. And you definitely don't let some small-town people think they get the final say. Besides, I never could stand your mother." A tiny crack appeared in the ice inside my chest. That little comment let me breathe just a tiny bit easier. We went to the empty clubhouse locker room to change. The room smelled like lemon oil and old leather, and every surface gleamed under the bright lights. My uniform came out perfect. Creases sharp enough to cut glass, stars polished to a shine, medals aligned in perfect rows. I checked myself in the mirror, seeing a version of me that carried years of service, hard choices, and earned respect in every ribbon. General Arden emerged from the next aisle in her own uniform. Retired or not, it fit her like she had never left. Her medals ran down her chest, longer than my forearm. I stared, impressed despite myself. She noticed and said, "Retirement ceremony was last year. Dry cleaner still works miracles." We stood side by side, 2 women in full dress blues under bright fluorescent lights, the medals on our chests catching the glare like warning beacons. She reached over and adjusted my hat. "Walk in like you own the ground under your feet, because today you do. Anyone who gives you trouble, they answer to both of us." I met her eyes in the mirror. "Yes, ma'am." She gave the tiniest, sharpest smile I had ever seen. "Good. Now let's go show a few people what real power actually looks like." We left the locker room and rolled out in her black Suburban, driving north through the breaking dawn. The first rays of the sun painted the marshes gold as we crossed the bridge. When we arrived at the resort, the valet almost dropped the keys when I stepped out in my uniform at exactly 6:30 a.m. General Arden climbed out behind me in identical blues. 2 valets stood there, mouths open. I handed him the keys. "Park it close. We won't be long," I said. He managed a strangled, "Yes, ma'am," and scrambled to follow my instructions. We walked under the arched breezeway toward the oceanfront courtyard. Every conversation within 50 feet stopped instantly. A woman in a cream linen dress literally froze mid-step, champagne flute suspended in the air. A man in pastel clothes stepped backward into a potted palm, like he had seen a ghost. The courtyard opened into the main lobby. The ceilings soared, crystal chandeliers sparkled, and the marble floors shined like mirrors. A string quartet was warming up near the grand staircase, but the violinist squeaked and stopped the second we entered. Alicia Vare spotted me first. She crossed the lobby in 4 quick strides and threw her arms around me. Tears soaked the wool of my uniform as she held me tight. Keilric Duval Vare, her husband, followed behind, standing tall and rigid even at 65. He didn't hug, he snapped a salute, sharp and precise. "Outstanding, Kaylin," he said, his voice rough with pride. "Damn outstanding." Alicia finally pulled back, still gripping my shoulders. "You're in uniform." "Oh honey, you're in full dress blues." "Yes I am," I said. Duval's gaze slid to General Arden and widened slightly. More guests were streaming in now. Active duty officers in crisp white uniforms, retired flag officers with medals older than I was, COs who golfed with 4-star generals, and state senators who still called Duval sir. Every single person recognized the uniform instantly. Every single one fell silent, paying respect. A retired Tybalt vice-reis I had briefed in Djibouti came straight over, saluted me first, then General Arden. One by one others followed. The lobby had turned into an impromptu line of salutes. Alicia laughed and cried at the same time. "We thought something terrible happened when you went dark on the phone. Corin's been losing his mind since 5. "Where is he?" "Inside the ballroom with the planners," Duval said. "He has no idea you're here like this." He placed a steady hand on my back. "Come on. Let's give my son the best shock of his life." We moved as a tight group through the lobby, past the concierge desk where every staff member now stood at parade rest, past boutique windows displaying handbags more expensive than most cars, past hushed whispers and raised phones. Someone whispered loud enough for half the lobby to hear, "That's 2 female generals in dress blues." Another voice answered, "No, the younger one is the bride." Alicia squeezed my arms so hard I could feel it through the wool. "Whatever made you choose this uniform today, thank you. This is the proudest moment of my life and I'm not even your mother yet." Duval growled low, "Your blood relatives are about to learn what happens when they mess with the United States, Kaylin." We reached the massive double oak doors of the oceanfront ballroom. Music and laughter leaked through the crack, bright and oblivious. General Arden stopped and turned to me, voice low. "Your show now, Major General." I took a slow breath, smelling salt air, polished wood and the faint sweetness of flowers. Then the doors swung open and Cale strutted in first at exactly 7:15 a.m. He wore a light gray summer suit that cost more than most people make in a month. His hair was slicked back with enough product to survive a hurricane, his grin dialed to maximum arrogance. Dad followed 2 steps behind in a Tybalt blazer and pressed khakis. Mom clung to his arm in a peach silk dress, scanning the room for the applause they assumed was already theirs. Cale's eyes locked on the head table, where Corin was adjusting a place card in his summer whites. He opened his mouth, ready to shout a loud, obnoxious greeting across the room. That was the exact moment he finally saw me. His grin froze. His face went white. Chalk white. His mouth opened and closed again and again. The only sound he made was a broken gasp. Mom's manicured hand flew to her throat, pearls clicking. 200 guests turned in perfect synchronization. The string quartet hit a sour note and never recovered. Crystal champagne flutes froze mid-air. Phones rose like a synchronized wave, recording the moment. Every eye in the room was fixed on me in my dress blues, most of them having only seen a uniform like mine on television. 2 silver stars gleamed on each shoulder under the chandeliers. My ribbons ran longer than my hand. Every medal I had earned in 20 years of service lined up in perfect, silent rows. Behind me, Major General Seraphine Arden, retired, stood half a step behind my left shoulder, also in uniform, her 2 stars flashing like warning beacons. Keilric Duval Vare's deep voice broke the silence first. "Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to present Major General Gua Lyric, United States Kaylin Corps, and Major General Seraphine Arden, United States Kaylin Corps, retired, the bride and her chosen escort." A retired 4-star Army general in the front table stood first. Then every active duty and retired officer in the room followed. 200 chairs scraped back at once. The standing ovation started slow, then detonated like fireworks. Cale still hadn't moved. His face had gone from white to green as if he might be sick on the marble floor. The room was alive with admiration, respect, and awe. Phones captured the moment, but nothing could capture the weight of that uniform, the story behind every ribbon, the courage it took to walk in and face a room full of people who never expected to see me like this. The power in that room was undeniable, but it wasn't just in the medals. It was in the story they represented. People whispered, gasped, and stared. Friends, family, strangers, and officers alike all stopped what they were doing to witness a Kalen showing the world what real honor, strength, and courage looked like. I felt a warmth behind my chest, a steady presence in my back. General Arden, even retired, was there. Supporting. My escort, my mentor, my friend. Side by side, two women in uniforms that demanded respect. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel the weight of the fire, the dress, the family drama. I felt the strength of who I was, of what I had earned, of the people who believed in me. Every step I had taken from the dark, quiet house, down the empty highway through the base to this room had led to this moment. Cale's mouth opened again, but no words came. Dad's eyes widened. Mom's grip on his arm tightened. Alicia's hands squeezed my shoulders, tears of pride running down her cheeks. Duval's hand rested on my back, steady, strong. And all around, the room rose, applauding, honoring, and witnessing a Kalen who refused to let small minds dictate her life. It was a moment that would never be forgotten. Every medal, every ribbon, every crease in my uniform was a story, a memory, a mark of courage. Every glance from General Arden reminded me that I was never alone. The applause washed over me, loud, proud, and unyielding. The world had finally stopped, if only for a moment, to recognize the power of a United States Kalen. And in that room, with the ocean sunlight creeping in, I knew something important. I wasn't just a Kalen. I was a story of courage, loyalty, and honor, standing side by side with a mentor who had always believed in me. Together we showed everyone what it meant to rise, unshakable, in full dress blues, ready for anything, unstoppable and proud. Cale's face remained frozen, pale, shocked. He had no idea what he was witnessing. He had no idea the weight of history, courage, and love that stood in front of him. The world had shifted just a little. For me, for those who had always believed in me, and for anyone who had doubted what a Kalen could do. That morning, that moment, that entrance, was more than just a walk into a ballroom. It was a statement. A warning. A promise. And as the applause roared, I felt it in my chest, steady and true. No matter what the world threw at me, I would walk forward in full dress blues, carrying the strength, honor, and courage of every Kalen who had ever come before me. And from that day forward, nobody in that room or anywhere else would forget it. Dad tried to smile, but it didn't look real. His lips curved up, but his eyes stayed worried and tense. "Amaranth, honey, we were so worried when you didn't come down this morning," he said, trying to sound calm. Duval there, who stood tall beside me, stepped in and stopped Dad before he could say more. He didn't raise his voice, but the words were firm. "Ronald, I believe you've met my future daughter-in-law, Major General Lyric. She is very important. Only General Arden and the Almighty are higher than her in rank." The room went quiet. Everyone turned to look at me. I felt a little nervous, but mostly I felt steady. General Arden, calm and very serious, spoke next. His voice was like ice, smooth and cold. "I have known GA for 15 years. She doesn't do drama just to get attention. So if she is wearing her dress blues to her own engagement party, some people better start explaining why right now." People at table 3 whispered. A Tybalt captain leaned back and muttered loud enough for 6 tables to hear, "Holy hell, she's a 2-star general." The whisper spread fast like fire on dry grass. Phones came out everywhere. People started recording. The live stream counters jumped past 10,000 in just a few seconds. Corin pushed his way through the crowd. He held Summer's cover carefully under his arm. He stopped just 2 feet away from me, stared at my uniform with all the medals and stars shining under the chandelier, and his eyes filled with tears. Then, without saying another word, he dropped down to one knee on the shiny marble floor. 200 people were watching. "Guana," he said, his voice shaking just enough to sound human, "I have never been prouder to be the man standing next to you. The room exploded with cheering. People whistled. Camera flashes popped like tiny fireworks. Everyone was clapping and shouting at the same time. Cale finally found his voice. His hands shook and his voice went high and shaky. This is insane. She's just showing off. Duval turned toward him, cold and hard like a turret locking on a target. Young man, the last person who disrespected a Kalan general in my presence spent 30 days in the break and had to write a 5-page apology. Choose your next sentence very carefully. Mom tried the sweet route. She touched Dad's arm and said softly, "Sweetheart, maybe we can all talk privately?" General Arden spoke again. His voice was flat and icy. Private conversations ended the moment your family decided that arson was an appropriate response to jealousy. Gasps went through the crowd like a wave. Someone whispered, "Arson," and suddenly everyone knew. Dad's face went purple with anger. "Now see here," Corin stepped between my family and me. He had not said a word since entering the ballroom, but now he spoke firmly. "Mr. and Mrs. Lyric Cale, you are guests at an event paid for by my parents. Start behaving like it or security will finish this conversation on the sidewalk." Cale looked around for help, but no one was on his side. 200 faces that had been ready to clap him on the back just 10 minutes ago now stared at him like he was contagious. The head planner appeared out of nowhere, her headset crooked, eyes huge. "Major General Lyric, your table is ready whenever you are. General Arden, we have added a seat of honor immediately." I still hadn't spoken a word. I didn't need to. The whole ballroom already belonged to me. I just looked straight at Cale and told the room the truth for the first time that morning. Last night at 2:17 a.m., my own brother poured gasoline on my $18,000 engagement gown and set it on fire in the backyard while my parents stood 5 feet away and watched. Mom said I deserved to be ruined. Dad agreed. The room went so quiet you could hear the ocean outside crashing against the shore. Cale's mouth flapped open. "She's lying. She's lying to make us look bad." Duval Verre's voice cracked across the room like a rifle shot. "Young man, you will stand there and keep your mouth shut until the general finishes speaking." Cale shut his mouth. Kept going. My voice was calm and steady. No one tried to stop me. My 17-year-old sister watched from her bedroom window and stayed silent. That's why I am standing here in dress blues instead of the gown I spent a whole year planning. Mom started crying instantly, clutching Dad's arm. "Gianna baby, you know how tension affects a family," she sobbed. General Arden cut in again, calm and serious. "Tension doesn't make you commit felony arson against a 2-star general, ma'am." A retired Tybalt Reese whispered, 18 grand up in smoke, and the number rippled out like a curse through the room. Then the side door opened. Lyra walked in. She wore the pale pink junior bridesmaid dress Mom had forced on her, her hair curled and her eyes red and swollen from crying. Every head turned. She walked straight down the center aisle, stopped 5 feet from Cale and spoke loud enough for every phone to hear. "I saw everything." Cale poured the gasoline. He lit the match. Mom and Dad just stood there. "I was terrified last night. I'm not terrified now. Jie is the only person in this family who ever protected me. Today I will protect her." Mom made a strangled sound. Dad's face turned the color of raw meat. Cale rounded on Leora. "You little traitor." Corin moved faster than I had ever seen him. One step forward, shoulder blocking Cale from my sister. "Finish that sentence and you'll do it through broken teeth," he said calmly. The room turned as one. 200 people who had been politely neutral just 30 seconds earlier now stared at my blood family with open disgust. Phone stayed up. The live stream counters went past 70,000. Dad tried one last fake smile. "Folks, this is simply a private family matter blown out of proportion. We are all very proud of Gaina's accomplishments." The senior senator's wife from Georgia stood up. Her voice was like steel. "Ronald Lyric, I've sat on charity boards with you for 20 years. You just admitted you watched your son destroy property belonging to a major general. You are finished in this state." A CEO at table 2 added loudly, "My firm will remember exactly who raises cowards and arsonists." In seconds the Lyric name became toxic. Guests physically turned their chairs. A retired Kalan Voss I didn't know walked over and planted himself between my parents and me like a human shield. 4 more veterans followed without a word. Cale tried to laugh it off. "Come on, it was only a stupid dress." A SEAL commander I had once shared a helo with in Helmand leaned in and said quietly, Walk away now, son, or I'll fold you into pieces small enough to mail home. Cale backed up until the wall stopped him. Dad's face collapsed. The fake politician's smile was gone. He looked old, small, and suddenly very afraid of the room he once thought he owned. Mom's theatrical sobbing started, but no one moved to comfort her. Leora crossed the last 5 steps, took my gloved hand in both of hers and squeezed. I'm sorry I waited until now. I squeezed back once. You're here now. That's what matters. General Arden rested a hand on my left shoulder. Duval stood on my right. Corin stood solid at my side. In less than 2 minutes, my blood family had been publicly, completely, and irreversibly erased from the room. 4 resort security officers in blazers appeared at the main doors, faces professional and serious. The message required no words. It was time for them to go. 6 months later, Corin and I were unpacking in Okinawa. The ocean glittered through the open balcony doors of our new quarters on Camp Foster. The engagement party had continued without a single hiccup the moment security escorted my blood family off the property. The music started again. The raw bar opened. The dance floor filled before the doors even closed behind them. Alicia cried happy tears all day. Duval toasted me like I was his own daughter. General Arden stayed until the last song, then saluted me on the front steps at midnight. You made the Corps proud, he said. Leora moved in with the Vares the same week. She finished her senior year at a private academy in Savannah, got early acceptance to the Naval Academy, and now calls me every Sunday from Annapolis. We never mention Brunswick unless she brings it up first. Back home the fallout was swift and merciless. Dad's county commission seat was gone within 30 days. The same people who once begged for his vote suddenly couldn't remember his name. The local paper ran the headline, Commissioner silent while sun burns general's gown. He resigned before the ethics hearing even started. Cale lost his ROC scholarship the second the live stream hit the commandant's desk. No branch would touch him after that. Last I heard he was bartending at a shrimp shack on St. Simon and still telling anyone who would listen that the Kalins ruined his life. Mom's garden club presidency evaporated overnight. Invitations dried up. The country club membership got quietly revoked for conduct unbecoming. She tried posting tearful apologies on Facebook. The comments were brutal and unanimous. I blocked every number, deleted every account, and changed my emergency contact to Corin. The only mail I still get from Georgia is the occasional postcard from Leora, with a plebe year update and a pressed cherry blossom inside. Corin and I married 3 months later in a small chapel on Camp Lejeune. Only 50 guests, Kalins, mentors, and the Vares. General Arden gave me away. Duval walked Leora down the aisle as a surprise bridesmaid. I wore dress blues again. Corin wore his. We didn't need a gown. The video from the cloister still circulates. It has 23 million views now. Every few months, a new clip goes viral and strangers message me, "Thank you for your service. You handled that like a boss." I answer the ones from young female troops and ignore the rest. Sometimes, late at night when the Pacific is calm, I think about that backyard fire. Not with anger anymore, just distance, like reading about someone else's life. I learned 3 things that weekend. First, family is not blood. It is who shows up when the match is lit. Second, rank isn't the stars on your shoulder. It is the choices you make when no one is filming. Third, forgiveness is a luxury I don't owe anyone who smiled while my future burned. Corin walks in from the kitchen carrying 2 beers, kisses the top of my head and hands me one. Still thinking about Georgia, he asks, "Are you okay?" I take a long drink, watch the sun drop into the East China Sea and smile. Not anymore.